Hi guys, hope you're all doing fantastic. You're watching Everyday Life. Thank you for all the love and support to our channel, and if you're not a subscriber yet, please click on the subscribe button and press the bell and thumbs up button to support our channel to bring before you more videos like this. Well, today let's look at archery. Archery is my newfound love recently. I've spent the last 1 year trying to learn and perfect the skill. In the process of this journey in the last 1 year, what I have realized is it's not easy to pick and find out what kind of equipment you need, because there are so many types of archery. It's one of the most ancient sports in the world, so there are so many types and variety of equipment that you have. And when you go into an archery store, then you find different types of bows, different types of arrows, and different specifications and things like that, so it's not easy to choose. So what I thought is, from my learning in the last 1 year, I thought I would make a video so that everyone else who's going to start archery does not need to go through the same kind of an effort, and it would make the beginning much more pleasant and an enjoyable experience. So what are the most important things you need for the archery? That's what we're going to cover today. But if we go into the detail and specification of everyone, it would be a really long video. So I'm going to leave a lot of links to other videos of mine, which will clearly explain what kind of bow you should choose, the types of bows, the types of archeries that are there, the types of arrows that are there, the arrow specifications and everything, so that it would really help you in choosing the right kind of equipment for you. Because archery depends upon the height of the person, draw length and all that, and depending upon your specifications, you need to choose your equipment. Remember one more thing, archery is a dangerous sport, so play it responsibly. And if you're in England, you need to have an archery GB card, which is called an AGB card. It's a club that covers all over England. You need to be a member of that before you shoot your first arrow, because it covers you for insurance and other things like that. You're not supposed to shoot an arrow. So let's get started. So with the archery, of course, the first thing that you need is a bow. And there are three types of bows that you have, which is, so the one is a long bow, the second one is a recurve bow, and the third one is a compound bow. The long bow is the one that's usually used for hunting and outdoor hunting and things like that. The recurve bow is the most standard bow used popularly. This one, what you're seeing here, is a recurve bow and is a good bow to start with. And the third one that you have, the compound bow, is a very technical bow and it is much more advanced. That would probably be the next stage of archery if you're going to go to that. Or recurve bow is equally good, and it depends upon what interests you really. Archery is a hobby and depends upon what your goals are, what you want to achieve through it. That's the kind of bow you need to choose. If you are a more classic kind of a person, you like something, you want your bow to look like a bow, then that's the bow you go for. If you want your bow to look like a piece of equipment from the future, then you go for a compound bow. So the recurve bow is the one that's used in Olympics as well, of course, with a lot of balancers, weights, and the sight, and adding the sight and other equipments to this bow. But what I practice is a bare bow. So for the bare bow, this is the basic equipment that you would need to practice archery. So on a bow, you have three different parts. This is the riser, usually made of metal. So the riser comes in different lengths and widths, different lengths. And then you have the upper limb and the lower limb. Again, they come in different lengths depending upon your height. Again, I'm going to show that in a separate video. Then after the bow, the one that you need is an arrow rest. An arrow rest you get in plastic or in metal. The metal tip of an arrow rest, I have, from my experience, the metal tip keeps breaking when I keep adjusting, or the arrow keeps slipping from it. So I eventually got into a plastic arrow rest, and I find it very good. The next thing is a bowstring. There are different types of bowstrings that you have in the market. It is worth investing in a good bowstring, because the bowstrings, the cheaper ones in the market, they stretch over time, and then when the bowstring stretches, your bow loses its poundage, its strength, and it kind of changes the velocity with which it shoots the arrows out. So invest in a good bowstring. The one that I have is a Dacron one, and it costs me around 18 pounds, something like that. I live in UK, so all the prices which I'm going to tell you will be in pounds. You can probably convert into dollars from there. The bow costed me around 325, 350 pounds, something like that. And yeah, and after you get the bowstring, remember the bowstring doesn't come with the bow. You need to buy that separately. And once you get the bowstring, you need to get the nocking points done. Most of the time, the store where you're buying the bow, they would do the nocking points for you. But again, I'm making a separate video for you, how to make your own nocking points and how to go about it. There are two types of nocks and all that. Again, we'll cover that in a different video. See the links below. So once you have your bow with you, the next thing that you have is called a plunger. So a plunger helps you in balancing the arrow, and it helps you keep the arrow straight, and more importantly than straight, it helps you keep grouping your arrows. You know, each time you shoot, when parameters change a little bit, it helps you keep the arrow to the same point again. So this is a plunger here, and there are different types of plungers. Again, there are like a zillion varieties in the market. Uh, and the one I use, the one with the gold tip, the gold tip plunger. Again, this one is around 18 to 20 pounds, something like that. And this one helps in keeping the arrow straight every time. Again, I'll make a separate video on how to use your plunger and how to set up your plunger, etc. So once you have the bow, the next thing that you need is a bow rest. A bow rest is basically to keep your bow. It is not compulsory. Again, a bow rest helps you in keeping your bow there in place when every time you go to fetch your arrows. If you leave your bow on the ground, probably your bow might catch moisture and things like that, and because you have the wood on your bow, it's not good for your bow. So invest in a bow rest, and it would cost you around 20 pounds, 15 to 20 pounds, something like that again. And so once you have your bow rest and the string and everything, the next thing you need are arrows. So there are different types of arrows in the market. Again, there are like a million varieties of arrows. I'll cover the different materials, the kind of arrow that is right for you on a separate video. Click see the description below or go to my channel. It is very important to choose the right kind of arrow for your archery and for the kind of bow that you use. Anything that you put on the bow and shoot, it doesn't reach the target. So this one is a carbon fiber arrow, which is a really good arrow. It is quite strong and sturdy. But to begin with, if you're a real beginner, then I would suggest going for fiberglass arrows. Fiberglass arrows are really cheap, and they're quite good for target archery practice in the beginning, at least. First 3 to 6 months, I would say go for fiberglass arrows, and then eventually you can graduate to a carbon fiber arrow. Fiberglass arrows are cheaper and are still stronger, but then once it breaks, it breaks. And usually what happens when you start archery, it's not easy for the first few days, at least. It's not easy to hit this whole board itself. You might sometimes miss the whole board. Your arrow might hit the wall and might break, or it might miss the board and go somewhere in the lawn, and you might completely lose the arrow. So go for a fiberglass arrows to begin with. After that, you have a carbon fiber arrow, which is quite good, and then you have aluminum arrows, and then other grades of arrows, which I'll explain you in another video. So when it comes to an arrow, the most important thing is that you need to know is not all arrows are of same length. There are different types of arrows, different lengths of arrows, depending upon the bow you use and depending upon your draw length. So on an arrow, another important thing apart from the length of the arrow is the spine of the arrow. This is a 600 spine, 31-inch arrow. My draw length is 30-inch. It's always best to take an arrow which is 1 inch longer than your draw length so that it doesn't fall off from the bow when you draw it. So it's a 31-inch arrow, and 600 spine is the strength that kind of explains the strength with which the arrow bends. And it is important because the arrows don't go straight when you shoot it. Because of the stress the bow creates, the arrows bend, and it is important for the arrow to bend to go straight. So when it comes to an arrow, there are 3 different parts. One is the fletching. Okay, it's important that you know this term. There are 2 types of fletching that are usually there. One is a plastic rubber kind of fletching, which is most common on most of the arrows. The other fletching you have is an actual feather fletching, which are used on wooden arrows. So after the fletching, the most important thing is the knock of the arrow. The knock of the arrow is what goes onto the nocking point of your bowstring. So it is important that you pick the right size of the knock, because the knock is not supposed to hold the string too tight, because it would make it difficult for the arrow to leave the bow, and if it is too loose, it keeps falling off from the bow. So you need to pick the right size of the knock. There are only 2 or 3 different sizes. Pick the right knock size for the right string that you use. The next most important thing in an arrow is the tip. There are different types of tips there, and for the fiberglass arrows, the tips are usually fixed and with a glue, so they're not removable. They're permanently fixed onto this one. But for the carbon fiber arrows and for the aluminum arrows, you usually get a screw insert kind of thing inside, for which you can fix different arrowheads depending upon your need and purpose. But for most archery competitions, actually for that matter all archery competitions, you would need a standard arrowhead, which is this one. So that covers everything on the arrows. So let's move on to the quiver in which we put the arrows. So there are two types of quivers that are predominantly being used in the market. The quiver that goes around the waist, and the quiver that goes on your back. If you are a Hollywood movie follower, then probably you would, when you think about archery, the first thing that comes to your mind is Katniss Everdeen shooting arrows, or it's probably Robin Hood shooting arrows. So I am more of a Hollywood person, so I would prefer having a quiver that goes on my back. The most common reason why people use the quivers that go onto the waist is that it's easy to fetch the arrows from there. But I believe that it's only a matter of practice, and whatever you get used to, you get good with it. So I use my quiver, I put my arrows there, and I never find it difficult to remove the arrow or to load it back into the quiver. So yeah, a quiver really helps in keeping your arrows, and it also comes with small zips and things like that to put your other bits and bobs into it. So the next thing that you need is a bowstringer. A bowstringer is very useful. Without a bowstringer, you cannot string a bow. It's quite difficult, and it is dangerous to string a bow without a bowstringer. Again, I'll make a separate video on how to use a bowstringer, but this is something that you would need. This would go on one end of the bow, this would go on to the other end, and then you load the string onto the bow. And remember, it's always important to remove the string from your bow after you use the bow, because if you leave the string onto the bow, eventually with time, it will stretch the string out, or it would affect the limbs of the bow, and the limbs of the bow would permanently lose their tension back. So which means the bow would lose its velocity, its poundage, and eventually the velocity of the arrow would change. So remember, very important thing, always unstring your bow after you're done with your archery practice. And a bowstringer is something that you would need for that, and this would cost you around £8, and you can buy it from eBay, Amazon, again, all these places. The next thing that is very important if you don't want to hurt your fingers is your glove. An ideal archer practices around 100 to 120 arrows a day, and if you're shooting that many arrows a day, you will end up hurting your fingertips, and it is important that you wear some kind of a finger protection. So most common practice again people use is a finger tab, which helps protect their fingers. But personally, when I use finger tab, I find it difficult when I pull the arrows out, so I prefer to have a glove. This is a standard archery glove. Usually archery glove covers 2 fingers or 3 fingers. I find this one quite good and flexible. It's important to pick the right size of the glove so that your fingers move more flexibly. And you can also wear a glove onto your bow hand. Again, it's a matter of choice. Sometimes I wear, sometimes I don't. This is not a compulsory, but the arrow hand definitely deserves a glove. So apart from a glove, because if you're shooting every day, and if you're practicing aggressively, you might still, even with a glove or even with a tab, you might still hurt your fingertips. So what I use is a basic medical tape, which is this one, a 1-inch tape I use. It's a standard medical tape that you use for bandages and things like that. I wrap it around my fingers, my 3 fingers, and then when I use it, it kind of protects my fingers. Something I found it useful, and I would recommend using that. The next thing that you would need is a string wax. A string wax is important to keep your string, to increase the life expectancy of your string, you might call that. The string, after using it for a period of time, the fibers start unraveling out, and the string eventually loses its strength, and it can be very dangerous. So it is important to wax your string once in a while. You put some wax on it, you put your gloves on, and then you just rub it across the string, and it helps melt the wax and apply it across the string and give strength to the string. The other thing that you would need is the arrow puller. It's just 3 pounds, 4 pounds. I never knew initially that there would be something like that, so I made my own arrow puller initially, but then later, once I figured out, that I bought this one. So because when you're pulling 100-120 arrows in a day, it might really hurt your fingers, so it's always worth investing in an arrow puller. And how it works is it kind of compresses. You put it onto your arrow, you hold it, and you pull your arrow back, and it has a grip to accommodate your fingers, and it's quite handy. Now you have all the equipment. Now you need something to shoot, right? So that's where the target comes in place. So this target board I've got from Decathlon. It's for around 38-40 pounds, something like that, and it's quite good and sturdy. I would highly recommend this Decathlon one. There are different types, but this one is quite good. I've been using it for a year. As you can see, it has taken a lot of damage, but it is still in place. It hasn't fallen apart. And first few days you might probably miss, like I told you before, you might miss the whole board itself. So it is important you put some kind of protection behind so that you don't lose your arrows. So once you have the board, the next thing you need is a target face. There are different sizes and types of target faces. If you're using for a compound bow, then you probably need a smaller target face because it's more accurate. But for a recurve bow, target faces usually range from 40 centimeters to 120 centimeters. There are even target faces for 15-20 centimeter sizes as well, which only cover just the first 2 circles or 4 circles. Uh, so and again, the size of target face that you select depends upon the kind of archery that you're going for. If you're going for a long distance archery, like a 70-meter range, then you would probably use a 120 centimeter size target face. If you're using like bear bow like me, then you would ideally need a 40 centimeter target face because you will be shooting across 20 yards, 18 meters distance. And along with the target face, you need some pegs as well to keep the target face in place. You can buy these pegs. Again, I got these from Decathlon, or you can just use some of the most basic pegs like these ones, which are pretty standard in archery. And while we are here, I thought I would cover up how the measurements work, how the points work on the face as well. Most of you might know it already, but I thought I would touch it up here. So there are 10 rings in there, and the first ring, the most outside ring, counts as 1 point, and as you go in, each ring gains you 1 more extra point, and the most centermost ring, the gold, gives you 10 points. So as you progress towards the center, you get 10 points. So there's one more thing very important thing that you need to know is what happens when you hit on the line between 2 rings. So say for example, if you hit between the ring 7 ring and the 8 ring in archery, it always goes up 1 point. So if you hit on the line between the 7th ring and 7-point ring and the 8-point ring, you get awarded 8 points, which is a good thing, right? So one more thing is that never ever call this a bullseye or an elo. Okay, if you want to save yourself some embarrassment, please don't call it bullseye. I've been through that. It's a gold. That's what you need to call. It's a gold. Okay, remember that. Very important. Next thing is the target stand that you would need. Again, I got this from Amazon, around 30 to 35 pounds something, and it's quite good, sturdy. I've left it outdoors in the rain and all that, and it has stood the test of time. So it's quite good. Nothing much to go further on that. And one more thing which is worth investing, it's not compulsory, but it's worth investing, is a brace height measuring scale. This helps you to do the knocking points, and it also helps you to measure the brace height, because over a period of time, as your string stretches, the brace height of the bow reduces, and that could heavily impact the strength of the bow, and it could eventually impact where your arrows are landing, right? So what is a brace height? I would give you a quick explanation, but see my other videos to understand more in detail what brace height is and how it will help. A brace height is the distance between the shortest point of your hold, your bow hold, your grip, and to the string. So that distance is the brace height, and you use the scale to measure it. You have inches on one side, centimeters on the other side, and you put it there, and then you measure your brace height. And when every bow comes with a fixed brace height, and it is important that you maintain that brace height throughout the life of the bow. And a small tip for you while we're there: if your brace height is more, if your brace height is reduced, which means the string has gone up, that means the string has stretched more than what it should be, then you need to twist your string a little to make the string shorter, which will again increase the brace height. And it works vice versa as well. Okay, so once you have all this equipment, then the thing that you need is a place to put them all in, and that's where the archery kit bag comes in place. I bought it from Avalon Archery. It's a really good piece. I really love the color and the features of it. It gives you space to put all your arrows in. You can store all your arrows in there, and you can dismantle your bow into 3 parts. You can take the riser separately. You can keep the limbs separately. You can unpack it, and you can pack it into this bag. It gives you a small compartment inside, and it comes with 3 different zips, so you can put your riser and 2 limbs in it. So it kind of protects the bow from scratching each other's one part to the other. And you also get a smaller compartment here, which will help you put your wax and gloves and things like that. It's quite handy. It is worth investing into a bag like this, especially if you're going to competitions. You don't want to walk around with your bow, with a full bow like that. Okay, so I guess that's all the basics that you need to know. All the basic equipment that you should have. I would again say should have to start archery. So apart from this, you won't really need much. But depending again on the kind of archery that you're going for, you might need to buy other things and all that. But this is what you need to start your archery. Remember that archery is a dangerous sport and play it carefully. Thank you very much for your time. Please subscribe to our channel and help us make more videos like this. Please click on the channel. There are more videos covering all the basic tips of archery, how to go about aiming, and what kind of bow is right for you, what kind of arrow is right for you, and covering all the other topics. Thank you very much for your time. Bye-bye.